Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. And friends, I'm so excited to bring back a favorite guest from season 2 back onto the podcast to go even deeper into how to really transform your organization's brand. Now, his name is Scott Miller, and I know the second you hear his voice, you'll recognize him. He currently serves as FranklinCovey's senior advisor on thought leadership, leading the strategy and development of the firm's speaker bureau, as well as the publication of podcasts, webcasts, and best-selling books. Rounding out, just 25-year career, formerly as their chief marketing officer and executive VP. He hosts the FranklinCovey-sponsored On Leadership with Scott Miller, one of the world's largest and fast-growing leadership podcasts, reaching more than 6 million people weekly. And nonetheless, he just recently released his latest book, which comes out today, Marketing Mess to Brand Success. So I'd like to welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, Scott Miller. Hey, Scott.
Mary, thank you. No one's ever said my voice is recognizable, but I'm delighted to hear that. And I appreciate you offering me the platform to return to your podcast.
Oh, it's so great. I know last time we talked about the 6 core principles, how to be a great manager for people in their team. And we really went a deep dive on how to navigate big change. And here's what I love, Scott. We had this conversation in the summer of 2019.
Yes.
And then 2020 happened almost prophetically, where many people went through massive change.
Yeah.
So I hope that was a good resource for people. But then equally, how did you know?
Well, I think, how did you know? Because you invited me on. You're the Nostradamus. I just had the content. You had the timing.
My goodness. Well, 2 years later, how are you and how are things with your career and specifically in FranklinCovey? Because it is a big change and you learn some things along the way, right?
Well, gracious of you to ask. Life is good. I live in Salt Lake City. Our family has survived the pandemic well. We're vaccinated. Our boys, we have 3 boys. They've all been in school live in Salt Lake. Salt Lake is a well-managed city, and Utah is a small but well-managed state. Business is good, both for me and for FranklinCovey. FranklinCovey had made a pivot to more of a digitally based training consulting company 3 or 4 years prior to the pandemic with the All Access Pass. So quite frankly, they weathered the storm well. Obviously they were, beaten up, but we lost no employees and business has grown exponentially. The stock is now actually as high as it was pre-pandemic, which is good for our investors and our shareholders and our employees. So thank you for asking. And a lot has changed, but I tell you, it's those that are agile and nimble and flexible and open to influence that will thrive post-pandemic. And I'd like to say that describes FranklinCovey and hopefully me as well.
Yeah. And equally, I think the things that you've probably learned, no doubt, over the last 25 years in the C-suite and beyond with FranklinCovey, really dictated and helped you write this book in particular. So the book is called Marketing Mess to Brand Success, specifically 30 challenges to transform your organization's brand and your own. So let's talk about that. What are, just an overarching of what's the secret to getting to brand success and less of the mess?
Well, I don't know the secret, but I do know 30 challenges that everybody will face. To your point, I've authored many books. There is one particular series that's called the Mess to Success series. The first book was Management Mess to Leadership Success, 30 Challenges to become the leader you would follow. The second book released now is Marketing Mess to Brand Success. This pulls, of course, from my 8 years as the chief marketing officer of a global public company. Yeah. The premise of the book is that everyone thinks they're in marketing, hopefully, because everybody is in marketing.
Yes.
And everyone's going to have an opinion about marketing, whether they're in IT or finance or operations. So brace yourself for that. But generally speaking, I wrote the book premised, Mary, on the idea that marketing and sales need to be better aligned. I was just tired of seeing that constant cancer, that disconnect, the blaming, the finger pointing between sales and between marketing. So I wrote a book for salespeople and for marketing people to figure out how to work better together, and included a lot of my own messes as a sales leader, as a salesperson, as a marketing leader, as a CMO. And so the book is funny, it's breezy, it's all about my mistakes and a couple of lessons along the way. And I think whether you're working for a mom and pop shop or you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, intrapreneur, whether you're working for a Fortune 5000 or something in between, if you have a marketing hat on, you're going to find this book to be a valuable resource.
And I think you're right. I think it requires a paradigm shift from the leadership and mentoring and inspiring others who you work with, of realizing that every single role on the team is a revenue generating and marketing mindset. You know, regardless of if you are the receptionist or the IT guy or the actual sales director themselves, right? It requires that shift to go, oh, no, that's not my job. You know, it takes away from that and go, actually, you know, every time I am front facing with a client, every time I hit a deadline, every time I show up with excellence, I am, you know, nurturing those brand ambassadors, right?
Well said. In fact, one of the premises of the book is that a lot of people that join marketing divisions or choose careers in marketing, I think, are hiding from revenue responsibility. Now, I'm sure everyone who hears that will be offended. Build a bridge, walk across it, get over yourself. I think there's a lot of legitimacy in that, is to ask yourself, are you hiding from revenue responsibility? Are you hiding from P&L? Are you hiding because you don't want to be in sales? That's part of the challenge, is because marketing is only there. They only exist to drive revenue. You cannot staple brand equity to the back of a bank deposit slip and fund payroll on it.
Yeah.
And that's not to diminish brand equity. I can talk with the best of them about the value of brand equity, but if you are in a marketing role, congrats, it's an invaluable contribution, and don't hide from the cash. Stay close to the cash, which is one of my chapters, is make sure that if you want to insulate yourself from a downsizing or some kind of disruption, make sure that your contribution is closely associated with either creating profitable revenue or somehow maintaining costs.
And that makes you a valuable asset on a team. That's talking about really retention and growth inside an organization and beyond, right?
I'll tell you another reason why I wrote the book, Mary, and you just stimulated this thought in me, is I once heard this horrifying phrase from someone, and that was, you're never in the room when your career is decided for you. And it's so profound and grotesque. And I wanted to have marketers start to take control of their careers, because when something goes wrong or south, like revenue, you know, the sickle, the axe comes swinging towards marketing more so than sales. So if you want to build a resilient career where you are in control of it, you're not subject to the whims of some cost-cutting method, or the CEO or someone needs to shake things up, make sure that you are associated close with the cash and revenue in the organization.
Very well put. And, you know, I could see how this could translate. Say you are the head of a social media marketing agency and you work with a handful of clients, or say you're a graphic designer and you pitch your services out. When you come to the table to those initial pitch meetings and say, well, why should we pick you? It's more than, oh, well, I have design skills, or I know how to post on Facebook. You know, it's more of understanding the true essence of what marketing is. And when marketing and sales and all the other stuff that you do in your business are all aligned, it's magic. You know, it's less work ultimately for all parties involved, right?
Nicely said. In fact, much of the book that I write is about helping marketers move outside what they love to do, right? Whether it's clicks or impressions or social or marketing automation or web analytics or user interface, but understanding first and foremost, what is your company's money-making model?
Yeah.
How do they make money? What products are profitable? Who is the customer? What is their circumstance? What are they hiring you to do? What do they call the problem? Because it's often different from what you call the problem. And be that voice of the customer to make sure that everything happening inside the company and marketing isn't just focused on your mission, your problem, and your goals, but rather your client's mission, their problems, and their goals.
Yes, yeah.
Too many marketers get sucked into the giant hairball. By the way, it's a great book, Orbiting the Giant Hairball. I reference it in my book. Don't get sucked into the natural gravitational pull of inward thinking, but be the reasonable voice that's out with customers and saying, you know what, guys, ladies, this ain't what clients are talking about. And that's not what clients are calling it. And that's not the problem that I don't think that client's trying to solve. I asked them. They're trying to solve this. Donald Miller has had a profound impact on helping clients find themselves in your messaging. His books, Build a Story Brand and The other books he's written on marketing are profound.
Yeah, Business Made Simple, one of the
Business
best.
Marketing Made Simple.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
right?
So let's take a deep dive. There are 30 challenges. We don't have 30 hours to do this podcast, so
Thank goodness.
I'm gonna take a deep dive into 3. But before we do
Okay.
that, I want you to define some things first, just to lay the foundation. In the book, you talk about circumstance-based marketing.
Yes.
What is that, and how can we test this out specifically in our brand to drive sales?
Sure. An idea not created by me, obviously. Bob Mesta and the late Clayton Christensen, passed almost 2 years ago. They really kind of popularized this idea around what is the job to be done, right? What is your client's job to be done? Is it solving dandruff? Is it passing lonely time on the bus commute? So you need a smoothie to do that? Whatever it is, understand the circumstance your client is in.
Yep.
Because similar looking clients might be in different circumstances, right? Retirees selling their home might not all be moving to a assisted care facility. Some might be going on a year-long cruise,
Yes.
right? Some might be, moving to Europe. So understanding the exact circumstance your client is invaluable. Can I share a short story on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
A minute or less. There used to be an organization called iRobot. They're the creators of the Roomba, we know as the automatic, vacuum cleaner. They originally named it iSuck, and then they, of course, came to their senses and named it Roomba. Here's the big idea, is that I may take some license on this, but I think it's very closely directionally accurate. When they first launched Roomba, they had a vast disproportionate number of them being returned because the engines were burning out. Nothing like they had experienced in exhaustive quality testing. Well, what they came to learn was that the vast majority of early clients were heart patients, people that had actually had bypass surgery or had a stroke at some point. And as they were recovering, their advice was, you can't leave your home. You cannot run a vacuum across the carpet because apparently that exerts the wrong amount of energy when your chest has often been cracked open.
Right.
And because they couldn't leave, they got lonely, so they wanted people to come into their home to visit them, so they wanted their homes cleaned, but of course they couldn't vacuum. So you had these heart patients that were literally and metaphorically running the Roombas into the ground. And they also wanted companionship, so the vast majority of them named their Roomba. But now, I'm not sure what they could have done differently, but what was insightful is to really understand who they thought was going to buy Roombas was not who was buying Roombas, and they were using them 3 and 4 times as much as they figured the client would. What's the big idea there? Move outside your comfort zone. Show humility. Demonstrate vulnerability. Ask questions. Have not just supporters, but challengers really push on you around who they think the market is and what is the circumstance that they're in. Had they known this was going to be the circumstance, they might have, had a name tag for your Roomba or something like that, right? Or made it more of a companion and maybe given better advice on don't wear out your Roomba because she or he's designed to only run, 30 minutes a day or whatever it is. There probably could have been some things that wouldn't have lessened the customer satisfaction, but would have created an endearing bond between you and the manufacturer of the product that people came and loved to love, but returned because they were burning out. They were using them too much.
So I appreciate that story. And anyone that's listening right now, just go ahead and raise your hand. No one's looking. If you have ever put a new product or service out into the market without asking your audience or clientele what they actually wanted, you were like, this is the thing that will solve all of their problems. You put it out there and you think this is it. And, just 20% of it just needs to be tweaked. And you say the messaging or the packaging or even just a small part of it just needs to be refined. How many times have we launched something and not actually asked our people, our clients, what they want?
What might need to be tweaked is your arrogance, right? Because there's a fine line between what Steve Jobs would say, which is people don't know what they want. Yeah. We have to tell them what they want, right? Great for Steve Jobs. And then all of us entrepreneurs and others that have a brilliant idea and we have a problem and we have a passion, but to your point, we kind of just charge ahead without the necessary intervention and data points and touch points to understand how close or how far are we to hitting a circumstance that enough people have that they're willing to solve their problem and pay for it.
Mm-hmm. And so this perfectly ties into the 30 challenges. Your first challenge was, it's the customer, stupid. And you say that in the kindest ways. I mean, sometimes we just think, well, obviously I'm the hero and I'm the one that comes to the table with all the solutions. It's asking your customer what they really, truly are struggling with, where their fears might lie, and what their hope and vision is. And so that you can take them one step closer to their hope and vision and one step further away from their pain and fears, right?
Again, so well articulated. I wrote this chapter based on the idea from the 1992 U.S. presidential campaign where Governor Clinton and Senator Gore were running against President George H.W. Bush and Vice President Quayle.
Yep.
And it was James Carville and Paul Begala, the two, genius Democratic operatives that had that sign in the Little Rock, Arkansas war room that said, "It's the economy, stupid." Because, George H.W. Bush had just come off of a 93% approval rating from the Gulf War, and the economy was going to the hell in the handbasket. That was the only way these two fairly, Arkansas, Tennessee for president and vice president. So it reminds me that marketers need to have a sign on their desk that doesn't say it's the economy stupid, but it's the customer stupid. Yeah. To just resist all of those temptations to talk about, like I said earlier, your needs and your mission and your EBITDA. I once heard the best salespeople, Mary, are not the salespeople that can tell you their quarterly goal. Mm-hmm. They can tell you their client's quarterly goal.
100%.
They know their annual goal of their client, and you're in your client's needs more than you're in your needs. Mm-hmm. Easier said than done, but it's solid advice.
And again, this is one simple tweak. It's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Right. It's just a simple tweak, as you say, a challenge to overcome that, again, helps you transform your organization's brand. So let's deep dive. Number 9, the challenge is don't only do what you know and like best. Why is that a good idea?
This is probably good advice for anybody everywhere. And that is, I think in marketing especially, we tend to run with our strengths. We tend to run with our passions. I just described all humans, right? But, if you like to be the recipient of direct mail, you're probably going to go with direct mail. If you love billboards, if you love viral videos, you get the point, right? If you're obsessed with, email templates, be really thoughtful around not neglecting the parts of the business, the marketing channels that may resonate best with your customer base. Don't let your own preferences and prejudices really jaundice what your business needs. And also don't neglect the parts of the business that need to be addressed. You might be a super creative designer, but if you don't have campaigns that are profitable, if you're not watching your P&L, you're going to get canned.
Right.
So be thoughtful about running only with your strengths and neglecting the parts of the business. And like I said, the channels that might better resonate with your buyer and their circumstance. Like I love print. I love print books. I love print mail. I love direct mail. I love boxes and tape and posters, right? I mean, I'm, 52. I get probably 600 emails a day. I get over 100 LinkedIn in-mails a day. The mail comes and I'm like looking through all 8 pieces. I love mail.
Right.
That doesn't mean that my clients love mail, right? That doesn't mean that what I love, my clients love. So just be careful not to fall into the trap of doing only what you love to do.
What that reminds me of is Dr. Paul White and Dr. Carrie Chapman with the 5 love languages.
The love languages,
right?
Yes.
And that relates back to, they've got a version for in the workplace, the 5 appreciation languages in the workplace. Yes. And so, if you are a words of affirmation person, that doesn't mean that every single one of your clients and customers are. So you might be over there writing handwritten letters every single day because you're like, this is it. If somebody would just send me a letter, I would feel so appreciated. And your clients are going, why is she sending me another piece of mail? True. And so that's a great reminder. But then equally what I heard in what you just said was, if there is one thing that you're really, really good at, and let's say you're, again, a graphic designer and you've quoted that this is a 20-hour job, but you're just like, I love this work so much, and you've put 80 hours into a job. Well, guess what? Your profit margin just got sliced, 4 times, right? So are you suggesting that we delegate the things that we're not good at or something else?
I suggest that you become really self-aware. That whether you're a marketer, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a college student, I don't care what your profession is or isn't.
Yeah.
I think the key to success is becoming really self-aware. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my blind spots? What do I see clearly that's been validated by others as being clear?
Mm-hmm.
What is accurate? What is my own perception of what is accurate, right? It's just I could go on and on for half an hour around self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
What is it like to work on a project with me? What's it like to receive a letter from me? And so the more self-aware you are, the more you know when your own biases, your unconscious biases are creeping in, and your preferences and confirmation bias, and how you may or may not use data for your case or against your case. All of us can use data somehow to support our idea, no matter how arcane the idea or far-flung the data is. So just become self-aware. If you think you're in groupthink, by the way, groupthink can be by yourself, a group of one, right? Just validating your own ideas. If you're spending 80 hours on a project, or I'm not sure the goal is to outsource it, unless that's what the client wants you to have as an outcome. I heard once it's lonely at the top, and it also can be lonely at the bottom. Don't be lonely. Choose to surround yourself with mentors and guides and competition and challengers and promoters. Don't just call in your grandma and she says, that's genius. Call in someone who doesn't think you're a genius, that says, that's a bunch of trash. Why are you doing that? Why don't you do that?
Yes.
You know why we don't do that is because our egos get bruised, right? One of the challenges is bruise hard and heal fast. I think the best marketers are those that can check their emotions and check their egos. They don't win the battle. They win the war. Meaning, too many marketers, too many salespeople, too many business associates focus on winning the battle, the project, the goal, the initiative, as opposed to winning the war, which is your reputation, your influence, your relationships. I don't mean to use combative analogies there, but you can only die on your sword once. Last time I checked. So pick that sword really carefully.
Yeah. And it reminds me, I'll be very honest for all of our listeners. I'm sure they've heard this before. We're in year, 17 of the Simplifiers now. Year 4, I was of the mindset that I just need to clone myself. I need to find as many people exactly like me to expand our operations, because our Simplifiers were really taking off at that point. And then I quickly realized, if you surround yourself with people exactly like you, you have some major downfalls. So in fact, the better idea is to surround yourself with people nothing like you, with a wide variety of key strengths and passions, and also introverts versus extroverts. And then you've got a diversity of thought and creativity and strengths at the table. It's a game changer.
And that takes an unprecedented and often unnatural level of vulnerability to hire people around you that in many cases may be smarter, better educated, noticeably more talented than you are.
Totally.
And you don't feel threatened by that. You feel validated and empowered. And your job is not to be the smartest person in the room, right? Your job is not to be the genius, to quote Liz Wiseman.
Yep.
But to be the genius maker, the genius igniter of others. That takes a secure, vulnerable, humble owner, founder, leader, manager.
I love it. And to your point, I remember you said this the last time we spoke, and it's always rung true, is if you are the genius in the room, you're the rescuer in the room. And so when you have others that are smarter than you in other aspects, then you're not the one that always has to come in and save the day.
Save the day.
And
but you know what's intriguing there? This isn't a but, it's an and. To the extent that some of your listeners and viewers are like me, a lot of us get our validation from saving the day.
Yes.
And I do, right? I do my best work in a crisis. Like I do my best work under pressure. I'll be on camera on a podcast and someone is sending me signals saying, we forgot to tell you you're live at a Saudi Arabia summit in 7 minutes. Land it and change your glasses. And I'm thinking, what the? But I love that. I'm great at that. I'm great at, And the challenge with this person, meaning me, is when you do your best work in a crisis and you get your validation from saving the day and the dopamine and the adrenaline, you start to artificially make things crises that aren't. You cook up crises and you elevate things that aren't, and your whole team is in pandemonium because that's how you get your validation, and you burn people out. You're on top of the world. So be thoughtful around, if you do your best work in a crisis and you like to save the day, that's not altogether a bad thing. You just have to be self-aware. You have to be vulnerable. You have to talk about it, joke about it, and give your team permission to call you out when they see you doing it.
Yes.
And then people they'll call you aside and say, Miller, that ain't a crisis. That's like next Thursday. Really? As long as they do it in a way that doesn't emasculate you and you can laugh about it, people want to laugh with their leaders about their leaders, right? That's a tough thing to do.
No one wants to work in a tornado for months and months and
That's
months
right.
and years
That's
on
right.
end with
They
never
won't.
end.
They won't. They'll leave. They'll absolutely leave you.
100%. Yeah. Well, let's move on to challenge 22. Build lists that matter. So let's talk about that.
I love it when the host doesn't give me any advance warning. It's like they spring it on me.
You're so great at this. So to ensure our creative genius in the work that we do, and also to make sure that we're really communicating our irresistible offer out to the right people, what kind of tips and advice would you give there?
Well, I think this kind of comes from a PR principle, a marketing principle, advertising principle. It used to be there's three components of any campaign, kind of 1/3 the quality of your list, 1/3 the quality of your offer, and 1/3 the quality of your creative. That was kind of a 80s, 90s. If you went to college in the last 30 years, you were taught that. And I think there was truth to that. The challenge, of course, is lists are only as good as they are hygiened, right, or updated. And lists tend to atrophy about 35% a year. Right. Lists meaning names you buy from a list broker, subscriptions to your podcast, whatever it is. So every 3 years, your list is going to generally be obsolete.
Right.
So for the people that are out there are thinking about putting your time into, buy one, get one free. That's great. Or you're putting your time into the best direct mail piece or the most genius jingle for your email or absolutely amazing user interface, don't neglect the quality of the list because you can have the absolute best campaign with a buy one, get 40 free offer. But if it isn't aimed at the right person in the right circumstance with the right messaging, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
So I argue that, by the way, I think what's fun is to do all the creative. It's fun to put together 100 boxes. It's fun to lick labels and get stuff out. You can see your work, right? It's like this is instant gratification.
Yes.
It's not fun to painstakingly scrape LinkedIn or Google or, go in and start to build a database where you confirm it with first name, last name, title, mailing address. Oh, wait, not just office mailing address, but home mailing address.
Right.
And their email address and their phone number so that you can, mail, email, call. So I'd argue that your list matters infinitely more than even your creative and your offer, because they're atrophying so fast. The average tenure now for most professionals is 18 months. On the outset, it's 36 months. Yeah. So by very definition of people moving in careers, your lists are completely trash. I love dogs. Trash in 3 years.
Yeah.
You got to build lists that matter, and you've got to painstakingly nurture them with your hygiene more frequently than you want to. It's not sexy. It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not rewarding until it pays off.
Well, and what I hear in that is specifically, again, being self-aware of your customer's buying journey. Because at the point where they jumped on, they opted in for the freebie, they've given you their name and their email list, to 18 months or, to your point, 3 years later, they are at a different space altogether, more than likely, of what problem or pain or fear they're trying to solve, and potentially what goal, hope, or vision they're trying to achieve. I mean, think about where you were 3 years ago versus where you are now. Yeah. I mean, unless you are a big retailer like Target for our American listeners, or Tesco in England, right, where you will still be all things to all people most of the time. Yeah. 99% of us are not ever going to be Target or the Walmart of our industries, nor should we, right?
Right. That's exactly right. Seth Godin wrote a book called This Is Marketing, and one of his chapters is called The Smallest Viable Market. I write about it in the book because it's counterintuitive. Most of us, when we do our small business association loan business plan or looking for venture capital or seed money, we want to say, oh, the world is our market, right? Everyone should read my book. Everyone should listen to my podcast.
Right.
Yeah. Well, once you've secured your loan, put that away and realize, to quote Seth, you need your smallest viable market. It's counterintuitive, right? You cannot boil the ocean. Now, some people what we call in the book net fishing. They spread out a net and they scoop up 5 tuna, but they also scoop up a rusty bicycle and a tire and some eel and an alligator.
Yep.
Versus spearfishing, right? And this is a bit macabre, but going out and getting very clear on what is your smallest viable market. It's counterintuitive. It's not as much fun, but it is enormously rewarding. And I also encourage your listeners to read Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing. It's a masterpiece.
It is so good. We talk about it over here as the ultimate ideal client. That ultimate ideal client, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times over of creating a customer avatar. Yeah, all of that. But the ultimate ideal client is one person. And when you understand him or her to the nth degree, again, her present pains, her future fears, and her future hopes and vision, when you're clear on those 3 things, there are thousands of her. And especially in this day and age where you can do online businesses, have clients in Dubai and all over the place. Right. It's a complete paradigm shift of trying to be all things for all people. Yeah. Be all things for one. And in reality, she can connect you to thousands just like her.
Very true.
So the last challenge I want to talk about is challenge 19. And I think this one is so critically important because most business owners, most marketers, I dare say, don't do this. And it's specifically how to choose the right measures. So how can we identify, track, and communicate our key metrics within our team as it specifically relates to marketing?
In the chapter, I address a variety of challenges, including, is marketing speaking the same language as sales, right? Are your measures their measures? And if they don't have any measures, and you make your measures up, make sure everybody knows what measures you've decided on. So if, at the end of the campaign, they say, well, I didn't care about that. So again, it just comes down to, no groupthink. Move outside your comfort zone. Discuss the undiscussables. If they're not clear, push on them. Choose measures that are stretch measures, but not so lofty and ambitious where you're never going to make them. And then everybody gets crushed, and so are their ambitions and their will to move on, right? You can have goals that are so lofty and ambitious that you never win, and people want to win. So this is about having the discipline, Mary, to, if you don't have measures that are given to you, create measures that make sense, but validate them, verify them with your stakeholders. This is what we're going to go after. Does this make sense to you? Or conversely, if you are given measures, don't be afraid to push on them if they feel like they're too lofty or the wrong thing. Don't push on them for the sake of wanting to contribute less. Push on them to make sure that this makes sense, that you're set up for success and you understand them. I share stories about how, as the chief marketing officer, I would be very clear. When I left the strategy meeting with my CEO, and we're a $500 million public global company,
right?
I would say, so let me be clear. I'm responsible for $1.8 million the day this campaign closes. Is that right? Right. Okay, 1.8 million. Is that gross or net?
Yeah.
Is that EBITDA, or is that just so I'm clear? And does it matter when that comes in? Do you care how many clients that's from? Is that, and so just asking those questions. And then once I'm clear, my job is go make the commitment and go deliver on it.
Yeah.
But I'm super clear so that we all are clear, and I'm giving them updates. How's it going? Do we have enough resources? And that's what probably kept me in the role twice as long as the average tenured CMO of a public company. It's like 3.5 years. I was in it more than twice as long, not because I was a great marketer. I think it's because the CEO saw me as always wearing the sales hat as well. I was right in sales boat, rowing with them. And I didn't let my ego get in the way of, changing strategies or clarifying expectations or pushing on occasionally. And I think marketers need to be hyper aware of, are you clear on the measures? Yes. And if you're not clear, get clear.
Yeah. Revenue generating alignment.
Totally.
Stop
role. Speaking. Yeah. Stop speaking in impressions and likes. Yes. And I don't care how many people might pick up the magazine in a doctor's office, right? Yes. Those days are over.
Yes.
Right? It's how many revenue generating clients are you helping to bring into the pipeline and help sales convert all the way through. Forget what is your role and their role only. Check your egos, roll up your sleeves, and make it work together.
Yeah, and you know as well as I do, when you track a metric, a true metric that shows that you are hitting the company's goals, whether it's revenue or otherwise, you're not tracking vanity metrics. And I think that's where a lot of small business owners get stuck, right? The vanity metrics of how many followers do I have on Instagram? How many views did I get to that last video? Yes, those are important. But are they? Ultimately, I have many multiple six-figure and seven-figure clients that I coach that have very small social media followings, but that doesn't matter. Because they're working with high-ticket clients, or that is not the end goal to have 1 million followers on Instagram.
I mean, here's an example close to home. Like you, I host a podcast. It is now the world's largest leadership podcast globally.
Yeah.
We put a ton of time into it, right? I mean, the quality of guests that we're interviewing and the time we read books. And I can talk all day long around how, 8,000 people a day are listening to the podcast. That's great. But if they're not coming over to the website
That's it.
and learning more about us and finding a solution that speaks their language, that solves their circumstance, if we're not credible wanting to offer them a solution they can buy, we can have 8,000 downloads a minute. And the board of directors doesn't care, right? I can have the biggest podcast. It can become a TV program. It can be Joe Rogan. No one cares if the clients aren't finding it valuable towards a step to learn about our solutions to solve their problems and becoming a paying client.
Yes.
It's all for our egos. It's all for our, brand.
Yes. And this is so critically important. It's inviting people who are like, their ears are perked up and you've said something that's like, oh, this is interesting. This could, simple tweak, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater again, inviting them to take the next step in their journey to, again, become one step closer to whatever they want to achieve or one step further away from their pain and fears.
Did you call it vanity metrics?
Yeah, vanity metrics.
I hadn't heard that term put that way, but I love that. I'll use that and attribute it to you.
Absolutely. So here's my invitation to all that are listening. Scott's website is marketingmessbook.com, and the book is released today. So again, the book is called Marketing Mess to Brand Success, 30 Challenges to Transform Your Organization's Brand and equally your own. So that book is out at your local bookstore around the corner or online wherever you get books and books are sold. So as we wrap up, Scott, I have a few questions. It's round 2, since you've done this once before, that I always like to ask people, and I find that this is so valuable. Tell us, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
Well, we actually touched on it earlier. That's Donald Miller's work. Donald Miller, of course, is the preeminent marketing messenger brand coach from Nashville.
Yes.
He wrote the book, Build a Story Brand. This is, and he wrote Business Made Simple, Marketing Made Simple. I mean, Donald really challenges you to, you call them vanity metrics. He might call them vanity messaging. No one cares why you founded your business.
Yes.
No one cares what part of Italy your grandfather's, olive oil recipe came from. No one cares about your mission.
Yes.
If your client can't find themselves in your messaging, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
My favorite quote from him, when I interviewed him on a podcast, he actually endorsed the book. He's the front cover endorsement of Marketing Mess. And he said he holds a messaging workshop, in Nashville at his compound. And he said he once had a house painter, like a guy that owned a fairly successful multi-million-dollar painting company, painted houses and buildings. And you went to his website and it looked like an Italian restaurant. I don't know why. And Donald says, and pardon my R-rated language, he says, your website looks like you own an Italian restaurant. You're a painter. It should say, we paint shit. I mean, not literally, but I mean, that's how clear it needs to be on your website, right? I don't care why your grandfather founded a painting company. And you know what? No one else does.
Right.
So be very thoughtful around, can your clients find themselves in your message? No one cares how many years you've been in business. No one cares how many offices you have. No one cares your commitment to excellence. I mean, they do, but they really don't.
Yeah.
What they care about is, can you paint their house in a quality, timely manner for the price you quoted?
Can you deliver results?
That's
Bottom
right.
line. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, such great books. Yeah. Story Brand and Business Made Simple. We'll put a link in the show notes for people if you guys want
You
to check
should
them
interview
out.
Donald Miller. I bet you he'd love to come on
Oh,
your podcast. And if I can make a connection there, I'd be happy to.
well, that was my second question. Who do you feel in your network is just up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on him.
Well, certainly Donald Miller. Nancy Duarte is a woman that I'm just very fond of. We're a very close friend. She owns Duarte. It's a design messaging communication firm on the West Coast. I kind of call her the Donald Miller of the West, and I call him the Nancy Duarte of the East. They do different but complementary things. She, of course, wrote the famous books Slideology, Resonate,
Yes.
Data Story. She's a scientist. She's a nerd. I tell her that. But she's a funny, hilarious, genius, relevant nerd. Follow Nancy Duarte. Her TED Talk is genius. Her book, Slideology, talk about the science behind storytelling, the arc of the antagonist and protagonist, right? To moving people from what is to what could be, from what is to what could be. Check out Nancy Duarte, Duarte. She consults with some of the biggest brands in the world, with CEOs on their messaging. She's an absolute genius, and she's hysterical and funny and likable to boot.
Oh, her TED Talk is spot on. What a great recommendation. Yeah. We'll link her up in the show notes for people if you guys haven't seen her stuff. Highly recommend as well. So, Scott, I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for today?
It's a beautiful day in Salt Lake City. It's mid-afternoon. My boys are going to be home from school any moment. And although it's book launch time, we might take the convertible out and go up to the ice cream store and just laugh and eat lots of ice cream and be grateful for all that we have and not think at all about what we don't.
Such a great response.
I think I'll do that. They'll love that.
Commit to it. That's the best part of practicing yoga is it's equally all about doing the hard work, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, doing the stances, and equally the shavasana, the rest and the stillness at the very end. And you can't do one 100% of the time or the other.
Is there anything better than mint chocolate chip ice cream and a waffle cone? Come on.
Sign me up. I'm in. Drop by my house, pick me up.
Thank you, Mary. I look forward to making connection with you and Donald Miller.
Oh, thank you, Scott, again, so much for your time and for all of your insight. Again, the website is called marketingmess.com. And my last final question for you is this as we end. Someone somewhere is listening to our conversation and she is completely inspired and she is looking at the concept of marketing as no longer hiding behind the things, but actually wanting to step forth and make a change in her own organization. What's one thing you could just whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
I think it's around self-disruption. I think the best careers are those, including in marketing, where you're willing to move outside your comfort zone. I've used that phrase several times, and disrupt yourself. Act or be acted upon, right? Be part of someone else's plan or have a plan of your own. I think the most relevant marketers are those that move in and out of marketing, right? They move to sales, they move to operations, they move to supply chain, they move to innovations, and they use that language to come and bring fresh ideas. You can't stay relevant on everything all the time. The technology is dizzying. Show the courage to disrupt yourself and move out for a while. Come back. Spin out for a while. Come back. Those experiences, especially being close to the client, will help you tremendously represent the client so that your solutions exactly match their circumstance.
Great advice. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mary. Talk to you soon.